Let's move on to type 2. O'Brien, let's see what type 2 is using the code. Type 2, permanently connected, intended for the load side of the service disconnect. You know what? Me using the word service disconnect in my book, that's not a bad thing at all.
Right.
They're using service disconnect all kinds of time. I'm wondering if they only use the word service equipment and then for the definition, and then of course never even describe it ever again.
Yeah.
And they go into service disconnect means. And maybe they only use the word service equipment when they're trying to do the legal conversation, you know, shall be suitable as service, you know, that kind of stuff. So I'm comfortable with the service disconnect. All right. So now this means that a type 2 surge protection device is installed on the load side. So coming back here, you know, Mario, maybe we can somehow in our textbook type 2 load side and line, you know, line side. We'll have to see if there's any. All right, here we go. Type 2 surge protection devices must be connected. Okay, but a type 2 surge protection device is listed for the load side of the service equipment. That's the listing. And then the definition says it's to be installed on the load side. Then we go to 242.14. It says type 2 must be connected to the load side of the service equipment. So it's all kind of coming together. And generally, type 2 surge protection devices, generally? No, they will be. Type 2 surge protection devices, I'm going to make a general statement, and I might be close to being right, that type 2 surge protection devices would have to have overcurrent protection. Clearly, type 1 surge protection on the supply side of the service does not have overcurrent protection. You guys follow that?
Well, sometimes type 2 in panel boards, just like your graphic is showing, sometimes they're not connected to a circuit breaker. Sometimes it's just a feed-through lug.
Like I just said, type 2 protection devices can provide overcurrent protection, but sometimes type 2, okay, let me explain it this way. It is going to have overcurrent protection.
It's just load side of service.
Okay, because I can get a plug-in type 2 surge protection, and it does not have any overcurrent protection. Well, Mike, it does have, no, Mike, it does have overcurrent protection because you have a 200 amp breaker protecting a panel board.
Right.
And when they designed this surge protection device that's bolted in and built into that panel board, they included the overcurrent protection, which is part of the overcurrent protection for the rating of the bus. Do you follow what I'm saying? So there is always overcurrent protection there. It might not be where you're taking wires, putting it under a breaker. Peter, you follow what I'm saying? So there's going to be overcurrent protection. Now, do you need independent overcurrent protection? We'll look at this graphic here. In this case here, we would have to look at the instructions.
Yes.
And the instructions will tell you what size overcurrent protection that would be required. And I'm going to talk kind of generally because I'm not an expert here. It isn't like it says 15 amp, 20 amp. It's kind of like not to exceed 60 amps, not to exceed some value. Because, Mara, make a note that we want to talk about this in our calculations class.
Okay.
Because if you put a 60 amp breaker and you have, let's say, a little 14 gauge wire going inside here, well, that 14 gauge wire, because of the length of that wire, will be protected under a short circuit ground fault condition because there is no load. Since there's no load, I don't have to provide overload protection. I'm providing short circuit protection. That's why surge protection devices, when you look at the instructions, they'll give you like not to exceed 100 amps or something like that, because a 100 amp breaker on this size wire for something that has no load will protect that device for the event of a short circuit as long as it has the short circuit current rating for the available fault. So just be aware of that. Okay. Eric?
And as you know, there is a rule for that in 240.21b1 for SPDs. There's an exception for SPDs. 240.21b feeder taps, 10 feet long. There's exception.
Well, we're gonna, okay,
right,
we'll
get there.
Go with that. Go with the exception.
Where listed equipment such as surge protective devices is provided with specific instructions on minimum conductor sizing, the ampacity of the conductor supplying the equipment shall be permitted to be determined based on the manufacturer's instructions.
I want to see that. Brian, I never heard this rule again. I never heard this rule before.
240.21 B1 exception.
240.21.
40.21
B.
one.
Oh, okay. So what I'm showing here, while Brian is doing that, what I'm showing here is, let's assume that this could be a tap conductor, right? And that's what 240.21b is, talking about tap conductors.
Yeah, that's why they put it there.
And so they put it there, 21b1 exception. Brian, we pop back here. Thanks. Where listed equipment such as surge protection devices is provided with specific instructions on a minimum conductor size and the ampacity of the tap conductors, meaning the wires I'm showing here in a picture, supplying equipment shall be permitted to be determined based upon the manufacturer's instructions.
Right.
I never saw that rule. That was brilliant. So this might say put this on a maximum 109 breaker. Well, that means that these are tap conductors, and the exception allows us to have the conductors not required to be sized and to go this way. All right, move on. Brilliant. How did you know that, Eric?
That was a code change that came in, I forget how many cycles ago.
You just remember that one?
Yeah, it was like 3 cycles ago, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I remember, but I didn't remember. All right, 242.14, just a comment to remind us that you can only put one wire under a terminal unless the terminal is identified otherwise. It's a common practice. I don't know how it is today, and it might still be that practice, where a lot of guys put the surge protection right into the lugs with face conductors. That, you know, it's mechanical. I mean, but no, can't do that. 242.14b, Type 2 surge protection devices must be connected anywhere on the load side of the remote building disconnecting means. So this has to do with, is this rule about remote building? Yeah, it's about remote buildings. 1 second. Didn't we have something at remote buildings, 215.18? Didn't 215.18 say that you want to locate them near the branch circuit conductors, branch circuit overcurrent protection device? Probably 240.18 probably would have been 240.18. I'm guessing it's going to be B. Let's take a look at that. If it's 240.18B, I think, no, not 240, 215.18.
There is an informational note.
No, B. Is it? There's something in. Oh, there's informational where?
About the branch circuit. Informational note says.
Wait 1 second. What
215.
Okay.
.18b.
215.18b. There's a note. Full screen. Surge protection must be effective as close as to the branch circuit when generated. Okay, but not limited lightning. Okay, the location tells you about distribution. Oh no. The basic rule says that the surge protection device shall be installed in or adjacent distribution equipment connected to the load side of the feeder that contains the branch circuit overcurrent devices that supply the location specified 18. I've screwed it up, 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and 4. And then it says, hey, just so you know, as an informational note, if you kind of put that near the equipment there, it's going to be a little bit more effective, is what that's talking about. Let's go back to 242. Is 242, Brian, is this actually talking about remote buildings?
Service supplied building or structure. Feeder supplied building or
let's
structure.
Let's go to A.
Okay.
A says, service supplied buildings, a type 2 shall be connected anywhere on the load side. Oh, we're in 14, which is type 2, okay. Add a remote feeder to a building anywhere on the load side of the first overcurrent device. Okay. Which is, okay, that's fine. That's what it says. So it's what we've been doing anyhow.